Hi, this is Jeff Lesher with What's the Point? And the point this week has to do with the Great Resignation, which is a topic that we addressed in a terrific webinar this past week and are offering a 4-part program to help you gain the awareness and the skills to do something to lessen the likelihood that your organization will experience the downside from people opting out. And I want to use this video to help highlight a handful of points about the Great Resignation, the risks that exist, and some of the things that you can do just to get your mind continuing to work on and addressing these issues actively, because there is no waiting. This is happening in real time. And the more you wait, the higher the likelihood you're going to suffer the consequences of losing at least the discretionary effort of people, and in the worst case, losing those people altogether. Before I get into that, I do want to preview one thing, which is next week, I am going to go after a company that totally deserves having me go after them. And I'm going to ask for your help in directly and through at least one other person, making sure that they know the name of this company and they not only never use them, but they make it a point to actively mention to anybody who talks about the work that they do, which is moving inter or intrastate. If they're looking at moving companies, they need to explicitly say, this company, which I'll reveal the name of next week, needs to be roadkill. Never, ever, ever work with them, and I will tell you why. So that's the tease and the cliffhanger. Tune in next week and you will get the download on this horrendous organization, which deserves to be driven out of business by their own ineptitude. Now, I don't want that ineptitude to apply to your business, so let's care about our people. And let's avoid the loss of the extra that they give us, discretionary effort, or their loss altogether, and that in the worst case, we recognize that we are losing them, we can't regain them, and we need to help them exit effectively. Because if you leave people who are merely present in place, they will take down the rest of your team. I had a conversation with a friend of ours over the weekend about this very thing, because his company has someone who clearly suffers from presenteeism, and they won't get rid of him. And the danger is not the lost opportunity and basically the flushing of resources based on paying this guy for doing very little, but it is the negative effect that having people like that in our presence has on the rest of us. And there's a ton of research about that, but the bottom line is this: if you have someone who is not meeting the standard of your organization, that person needs to go after you've done everything reasonably possible to determine their willingness and ability to abide by and achieve those standards. And when you leave them in place, you suck the rest of the team down into that same drain. That's on you. One of the things that is driving this loss of discretionary effort, either presenteeism or exit altogether, is CEOs and other organizational leaders' maniacal insistence on having people return to the same workplace because they prefer it. Because according to one leader quoted in a recent article in the Wall Street Journal, he can't afford to be wishy-washy. So everybody has to come back because that's the way that we maintain our culture. Well, let me give you a couple of insights about that, because that's BS. Number one, most of these organizations that talk a lot about their culture don't even have behaviorally defined values in place. And even the ones that do either haven't properly, fully, effectively defined them, and or they don't introduce them and have people sign up for living them, and or they're not infused in their employee life cycle processes, like how we select, how we develop, and what we develop to, and what we recognize and reward people based on. So don't tell me about culture if you don't have all those things in place and are using them well. And that's the vast majority of organizations, as somebody who's been working in this space for about 30 years. So I know what I'm talking about. And it's not an indictment, it's just a statement of fact. If you're worried about your culture, start with the stuff that actually defines and enables culture, and not require people merely to come back into the same space because somehow we think magically, woo, little fairy dust, that's gonna work. That's B-effing-S. Okay? So hopefully we're clear on that point. Here's the second part. I can't tell. I can't tell what they're doing. I can't tell if they're doing. I can't tell that they've done enough. I can't tell that they've... Seriously? You don't know what success requires? So again, that's an area of opportunity for definition. Anybody tells you who you can't tell, I can't tell, I can't ask about that, I can't test for that, whether they're selecting, developing, recognizing, rewarding, supporting people in the flow of their work, they're doing it wrong. So if you haven't read Andrew Friedman's book, Thrive, read his book. If you are paying attention to what I'm sharing with you, take some time and write down what people need to do and know in order to perform at the highest level in your most critical roles. And we can help you do that, and there's a greater science to it, but if you just started with a list, this is what's most important in the role, this is what people need to know and know how to do in order to be able to accomplish those things, you are down the path of actually being able to measure. And that measurement applies and is actually necessary whether the person is working in the office next to you or halfway across the country or somewhere in between. More importantly, and we know this, but this is tough because it's not binary, it's not on or off, it's not yes or no, is where people do certain kinds of work should remain within as much of their control as possible. That equals flexibility and or autonomy, connection, collaboration, creativity, learning. We want to encourage people to be as proximate with one another, same time, same place, as possible. Same time, different place, using some of the technologies and tools available to us are okay. And that they mix and match that kind of work with the heads down focus work that many people are finding is more accessible to them from their home. If they have a home office with a door, if their kids are back in school, if their spouse has returned to their office, some combination of all of those things. That, folks, is how you maximize high performance and minimize the risk to your organization of losing people. But if you reverse the polarity on that, and you say 3 days in the office, 4 days in the office, 5 days in the office, I don't care, and do your culture thing, whatever that is, I don't know, you don't know, but we'll pretend like we do because we see each other in the hall. And I'm going to tell you that you have to be here from this totally random time to that totally random time, which, by the way, then costs us a ton of time in getting to and from, so we can't possibly be as efficient or rested. Our well-being will be negatively impacted, and we just don't feel respected. So respect yourself and take the time to define success, values, and criteria for high performance, and respect those people who you're depending on the most, and stop treating them like children or outliers who will do the least possible they can or the worst job they can unless somehow you periodically can stick your head into their office or over their cubicle to see them. I mean, come on. When you say it like that, it's as ridiculous as it actually is. So stop being ridiculous and actually be a more effective leader. Don't be wishy-washy. Be decisive. Do the right thing. Enable your people to control their success. And guess what? They will be as successful as possible. That is the point.